Hey guys, this is Zach with CBI and Prinsu. Today we're going to be doing a roof rack install on the RAM TRX. This roof rack will also fit on any other 1500 crew cab. So let's jump into it and see what we got. Okay, so when we open up the box, this is everything we're going to find. We got a wind deflector, 2 side rails. We're going to be putting some noise reducing trim on ours. We're going to have 8 crossbars, one's going to be silver, and then we're also going to be getting some hardware. We've got some tie down rings for you guys, some wind deflector hardware, some side rail hardware, and then our mounting hardware for the rack. Okay, so tools for this install, we're going to need a couple wrenches. We've got a 7/16 and a 1/2 inch. We also got a Phillips screwdriver, size 30 Torx bit. Some prying tools will be helpful, a good set of drill bits with a drill, measuring tape, some safety glasses, and then I have a step bit to make my life a little easier. Okay, so once we know we have everything we need, we're gonna go ahead and put together the wind deflector. We're gonna grab our wind deflector hardware, which is the one with these T-nuts, and we're gonna slide them into the top of this silver crossbar here. We're gonna have 5 in each slot. And then once you have them all put in the slots, I like to go along with a screwdriver and line up all the T-nuts with the holes of the wind deflector, so that when I go to put it onto the crossbar, it's easy to find the T-nuts. Okay, so now that we have all of our T-nuts lined up with the holes of the wind deflector, we're gonna go ahead and lay it on top and start threading in our Phillips drive screws. Okay, now that our wind deflector is all put together, we're gonna go ahead and put this noise reducing trim on, which I highly recommend. It just cuts down on road noise when you're out on the highway, and also helps you get a nice fit to the vehicle. So the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna take the spongy side and put it to where it's facing downward, and then just go along and push it up into the wind deflector so it clips on really nice, and then we'll have to trim at the very end just to make sure we get the right length. Okay, now that we have our wind deflector all put together, we're ready to move on top of the vehicle and start working on our mounting points. To do that, we're gonna have to remove this trim. It's also a good idea to maybe put down some masking tape or painter's tape or something to protect your vehicle while we do this. So to take off this trim piece, we're gonna get some prying tools, and you reach underneath here and you pry upward. This piece has to slide up and out. Okay, so once we've popped this end up and out, we're ready to just go along and pop out all these little clips here. You can kind of see a white one here underneath. And there's about 6 of them. We're gonna run down here and just pop them out. Okay, so now that we have this trim piece off, we're ready to go ahead and mark where our rear mounting foot is gonna be. And how we'll do that is there's this little nub here where the last clip is, and we're gonna measure 1 3/4 back and then just put a line there. Okay, so now that our line is drawn, we're gonna grab one of our spacers and just set it down. And what we're doing here is just making sure we have our lateral position correct so that this spacer can sit flat. So we're gonna find it a good spot and then mark about where the center of that spacer is. Okay, so now that we have the spot marked where we're gonna be drilling, we're gonna grab a small drill bit, about an 1/8 inch, and then drill a pilot hole, and then work our way up to 3/8 of an inch. Okay, so now that we have our hole drilled, we're ready to install our plus nuts. Now these can be a little bit tricky, so I'm gonna show you guys how they work. So along with the plus nuts, we're gonna send you a bolt with a coupler, kind of a stack up that looks something like this. And the way you work it is you stick the bolt in here, thread it all the way down until it gets snug. I like to take a pair of pliers just to grip it and snug it down, not a lot. Just a small amount. That's about it right there. And then what you'll do is you'll put this into the hole we just drilled. You hold the coupler with your 1/2 inch wrench, and then you'll take your 7/16 wrench and tighten it down. And as you do it, it'll compress the plus nut. It'll expand out and permanently install itself into the top of your vehicle. Now you don't want to over tighten them, so you'll feel it be kind of hard to turn, and then it'll get easier to turn. And then as soon as you feel it get a little bit harder to turn, that's when you'll stop. And I might recommend even doing one of these not inside the vehicle so that you can get a good feel for what it looks like and what it feels like when it starts to get hard to turn. So right about there is a good amount. You don't want to over tighten it, because also when you go to thread in your bolt to install the vehicle, when you go to thread in the bolt to install the rack, it might also compress itself a little bit. So be careful when you're installing the rack not to over tighten your bolts. So that's what it looks like. Okay, so now that we're ready to put our plus nut in, we're gonna put just a little bit of silicone around the edge to make sure we don't have any water getting in after we install our rack. And you don't need a lot, just a tiny little bead right around the rim. And then as you put it in and compress it, this will keep it nice and watertight. Okay, so now that we have our plus nut inserted, we're ready to go ahead and mark where our other mounting feet are gonna be. And what I'm gonna do is just install this rear mounting foot with the spacer and with the bolt and washer. And then I'm gonna go through and mark where the middle and front mounting feet are on this side rail. Okay, so now that we have our middle and front mounting points marked down, we're gonna go ahead and follow the same procedure as we did for the rear mounting foot, starting with our small drill bit and working our way up, and then putting in our plus nuts. Okay, so now that we have all of our plus nuts installed, we're gonna be drilling some holes into this trim piece so that we can fit our spacers down through them. And the way we're gonna do that is slide the trim down onto this last clip here. Don't worry about clipping the rest of them on. We just wanna have that clipped in so that we know where all the holes are when this is sitting properly. Then we're gonna go along and just mark where all of those plus nuts are. All right, so when you're putting this trim piece back on, it can be a little bit tricky to get it to clip onto the connecting points here. The way you got to do it is there's little notches here, and you got to line it up with the notch on the white clips, and you hook it around and then push down the other side, and it should clip right in. Okay, so now that we have our weather trimming back on, we're ready to drop in our spacers. We're gonna put a little bit of silicone on them just to make sure no water gets down in those holes. Even though we already did seal the plus nuts, we just want to be extra sure, because getting water down in your frame is not the best. All right, so now that we have all of our mounting points prepared for the rack, we're gonna go ahead and assemble it here before we go put it on top. And to put it together here, we're just gonna make sure we have our crossbars all laid out in the same orientation with the slots facing up. And then we're gonna put our torque screws through these smaller slots on the side rail here with a little bit of thread locker to make sure nothing falls apart. And then once we have all put together, we'll put it up on top. All right, so once you get your rack up on top here, make sure that you're aligned in the middle. Try to get your bolts to be in the same spot relative to the slot on all 6 mounting feet, and that should give you a pretty good alignment for it being in the middle of the car. And yeah, that should just about do it. All right, thanks for watching with us, guys. If you have any questions about the install, make sure to hit us up in the comments below. Please like and subscribe so you can see all of our new content coming out, and we'll see you out on the trails.